fight from within. You're about to go behind enemy lines.
Roger, 3-2. Goliath copies all. Go ahead. Target is surrounded by multiple firms entering what appears to be a residential area. Requesting permission to engage. Over.
From the People's Republic of New York City, you're now going behind enemy lines with Gene Baradelli and Russ Gallo.
And you are now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, America? Gene Baradelli here with you. So glad you could be with us, whether you're listening at www.behindenemylinesradio.us or if you're checking us out on AM radio, FM radio, internet radio. We're glad you tuned in, locked and loaded for another great show. Or if we're traveling along with you as a podcast, we are so happy to be along for the ride. Got a tale of two shows this week for you folks. We're going to start out with, of course, remembering all of our great listeners in the Florida, Georgia area, especially those of you who were affected by Hurricane Irma. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. I know a lot of what you're going through, having gone through Superstorm Sandy and the cleanup effort that you're going to have to endure for a while. And, you know, my thoughts and prayers are with you. We know you're going to come back stronger than ever. Better than ever. It's going to take a while. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen the next day. Normal is going to have to be put aside for a little bit. But you're going to get through it. We know you can. You're strong. That's why you're listening to this show, because we know that you're great people, proud Americans, and we're pulling for you guys down there, especially all of us Yankees here in the People's Republic of New York. Like we said, we got a tale of two shows this week. Of course, we have to observe, as we always do, one of the darkest anniversaries ever, September 11th, has recently passed. As we're broadcasting this show, happened this week. And, you know, it's with a heavy heart that I always do this show. But we're going to do something even more so than we've done in past years. Of course, you know, I'll talk to you about my own experiences and all that. But I have something special. I have actual radio runs from New York City on September 11th that I've put together for you. And you'll be able to hear those moments, feel those moments. Because I think we're starting to forget in this country what exactly happened that day. I think we're starting to fall into that lull of remembrance. That, yes, we remember the day, but we don't... Obviously, we it's not as close as it was in past years of remembering. I think we become a little complacent. I think we don't realize what's at stake in the world anymore. When we talk about a war on terror, when we talk about what's going on with Iran and what's going on, we still have troops dying overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan. And you can check out those numbers at www.behindenemylinesradio.us. Every year we put it up and we add, unfortunately, a new tally to that number. We're up over 8,700 deaths of American soldiers and civilians in Iraq and Afghanistan. Nobody's reporting on this anymore. Nobody wants to know about it. It's out of sight, out of mind. The war on terror, we're being told that we're winning it. It's out of sight, out of mind in a lot of the media. We're talking about Russia. We're talking about, rightfully so, we're talking about the hurricanes. We're talking about a nuclear North Korea. We're talking about Iran. It's out there, but it's not out there. I get this feeling that we're forgetting. We're forgetting those moments and what happened and how this nation was attacked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play some clips. These are actual radio runs that we obtained here behind enemy lines. I've had them for years, actually. They were given to me as part of a compilation that was created by the Police Benevolence Association in New York City. And I've had this believe it or not, it's a CD-ROM that was put together by thinblueline.com. And it's a volume of radio runs and different remembrances and compilations that I gave when we donated to thinblueline.com. All the proceeds went to the New York City PBA Widows and Children's Fund. And I'm going to play some of them for you now, because we should never forget how it was that day. I know as a New Yorker, I'll never forget how it was. I wasn't even in New York that day. I was still in law school at the time. I had just arrived early for my advanced writing class, and I was in the library getting ready for that class when I'm in the library in Connecticut at Quinnipiac University School of Law, and a friend from New York City comes in and says a plane just hit the World Trade Center. And I'm thinking a small Cessna, a private plane, something like that. And then he turns on the TV, he's trying to explain to me what's going on, and he turns on the Today Show just in time for me to see the second plane strike the World Trade Center. So, as you can tell by hearing me a little bit, I'm a little heavy in talking about this, guys. But we need to remember this. We need to keep this story going. We have a generation now that was born in a world that existed post-September 11th, 2001. And they don't remember what it was like pre-September 11th. They only know this world. They only know the world where innocence was lost in America. And I truly believe that. We've started to accept things like increased security and armed police that are armed to the gills. Things that didn't exist back when I was growing up or even as a young adult. We need to remember. We can never forget. Never forget is not just a bunch of words. So I'm going to play this first run. And this is real NYPD radio runs. Here's when the South Tower collapsed.
Okay. One of the buildings is partially collapsed. And the whole entire area is dead. Transmitting the urgent. Identify. C3, a major collapse in one of the towers. Tower, Kate. The South Tower, major collapse. 10-4. Banana field com, Kate. Banana field com. 26 standby, Banana field com. Banana field com.
8-6 to Manhattan, urgent.
Marine 6.
Tower 2 has had a major explosion and what appears to be a complete collapse surrounding the entire area.
Marine 6, 10-4, we were notified, Kate. Banana field com, Kate. Banana field com.
Now, what you were hearing were FDNY communications. When you heard FieldCom, Manhattan FieldCom, that was the FieldCom van that was on site by the towers. I believe it was a backup van, and that van ended up being lost during the attacks. Also, you heard Marine 6. You may have heard stories about Marine 6. That's the fire department boat that reported the second plane hitting the towers. It also reported, as you heard, the South Tower, Tower 2 collapsing, when you heard the other reports coming in as well. During this time, you also had members of FDNY and NYPD, first responders, trapped in various areas of the city during this time. And you have to remember how chaotic it was back then, during this time. You also have to remember the time. We're talking about 2001. We're not talking about social media, and smartphones were not as prevalent as they are now. I think I still had a flip phone or something like that. I'm trying to remember. I don't even remember. I know that in my personal experience, I did have a cell phone, and I was one of the few people that actually get through to my family on a cell phone while I was up at law school. I remember that much. I remember landlines being completely useless. I know that in talking to my family, that my father was working. He was working as a towboat operator at the time, and he was on the water. And let me tell you, and I've never released these personally myself, the photos that he took from that day of approaching Manhattan from the water. And, you know, if you don't know, they ended up calling for boats to blockade Manhattan through the Narrows there, the Verrazano Narrows that leads into Manhattan, because they didn't know if there was going to be another attack coming by water. And my father was part of that blockade, and eventually he used his towboat to transport people out of Lower Manhattan across to Brooklyn, almost like a ferry, taking, you know, as many people as he can on a boat that would be safe enough to travel, going across and going back multiple times. And while he was on Manhattan, the photos he took that I have, I've never shared them. Maybe I'll share them soon. But the photos he took of the cloud of debris coming towards him, and I think he has a picture of one of the engines. There's some mechanical piece of equipment that's on the ground that I can't identify. Maybe I'll put it up and you can see it for yourself. Just amazing things. My father, I'm proud to say, was one of the heroes that day. I remember he got an award from an Italian-American society that recognized what he did that day. And it's hard to even talk about it now. But here's another radio run. This is a clip of first responders accounting for where they are and trapped in different sections of Lower Manhattan, whether it be subway stations or other buildings at the World Trade Center.
Be advised, we have units trapped in the train station, Park Place on the 2 and 3 line, Park Place 2 and 3, and we also have officers trapped Chambers Street on the E and C line, on the Eddie and Charlie line. We have officers trapped.
Try to rate those trapped officers.
Alright, officers out on Rector Trinity Place. You on the air? Alright, units, let me just tell you where we're getting calls from. We got Rector Street and Trinity. We got a building collapse with officers possibly trapped in the train station. That's the location. Rector Street and Trinity Place. We also got Albany and West Street. We got 1/2 of 13 George unaccounted for. We got 6th World Trade, 7th World Trade, and the North Tower. We got report to officer strapped under debris. We also got Park Place and Chambers on the 2 and 3. We got a report of officers trapped in the train station. I'll read it again. We got Trinity and Rector, Albany and West, 6th World Trade, 7th World Trade. We have Chambers and West.
13 traffic sergeant.
Oh, yeah.
13 traffic sergeant.
Traffic sergeant, to see, Ken.
There's several MOSs trapped inside of building 5.
Sergeant, where at, Sarge?
In the basement. In the basement. On the ground level and the basement level.
We have ambulances at Spruce and Park Row if possible. Spruce and Park Row. Alright, 10-4.
Detail sergeant, Dexter. We need VSU over at Broadway and Fulton. We have cops trapped inside the subway.
Broadway and Fulton, Ken?
There's cops trapped inside the subway. We can't do nothing down there.
Alright, that's a 10-4.
Obviously, it was complete chaos that day. America had just been attacked. We don't know if other attacks were coming. And obviously, we hear about what's happening at the Pentagon. And we hear about Flight 93 going down sometime later, of course. As for my personal day, my day was spent, I left school after I got in touch with my family. And I went home. And I did what most Americans did, watch the news coverage. And my heart was aching for not being in New York. I mean, a day before, I was thinking about going to the New York Penn League Championships for the Brooklyn Cyclones. That was their first year of existence with baseball returning to Brooklyn. And we were up 1-0, and I was getting ready to watch what I thought was going to be the greatest moment in Brooklyn baseball history since the '55 Dodgers. That was what was on my mind the day before. And the day after 9/11, I'm driving back into New York